to stage. I think I have to get on the stage. Okay. All right, good. All right. And then we have to add in our video files, and we'll go through each one. All right. I think we're back on. Okay. That's Dr. Sheen's. That's the video. But again, let me start over. It's 10:07. We wasted 2 minutes. But this is a 12-part series that Dr. Sheen did on Robert's Rules of Order. It's about trying to customize, talking about what we do in the meetings. Robert's Rules of Order, as you'll hear him say, is a 400 some odd page book. But we don't have time for that. I don't think anybody has time for that. But it's in this series, it will talk about essentially 99% of the stuff that we deal with in either a meeting and or a convention. The next thing I'm going to ask Dr. Sheen to work on is how to talk about conventions, what's important with the conventions and all that kind of good stuff, getting the president and winning votes there. So I will go ahead and get this started just to let him go, and let's see if we can get the volumes to work. And so I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to play Dr.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. In that role, I've had to learn about Robert's Rules of Order. I'd like to use this video series to introduce you to some of the core principles in Robert's Rules and how they apply to the kinds of meetings and events that we hold. First, some background. Robert's Rules of Order are a widely adopted manual of parliamentarian procedures. They provide a common sense set of rules for how to conduct a meeting of a deliberative body. You may be wondering, who is Robert? Well, Robert was an Army officer back in the late 1800s. At one time, he was stationed in San Francisco, and while there, he was a member of several civic organizations. Now, those organizations didn't have a formal set of parliamentary rules, and so the way they kept order was typically using fists and clubs. Not the best approach, not what we want to be using now. So he took it upon himself to create a set of simple rules for debate that protected the rights of all those to speak in an orderly manner. They're intended to prevent an autocrat from dictating to the organization with no debate, and to prevent a vocal minority from hijacking an organization by filibustering everything. Over time, the rules have been expanded and amended. We're now on the 12th edition, and the book is 469 pages long. We're not going to cover all 469 pages, but we will address the main elements that impact 99% of what we do. The reason organizations adopt Robert's Rules is to ensure fairness. They protect the rights of all members, the majority, minority, individuals, and even those who are absent. They promote efficiency and they maintain order. I want to emphasize those last two objectives, promoting efficiency. When used well, they keep the meeting on track. They allow everyone with a right to a voice in the meeting to speak up and to present their position without filibustering the proceedings. The second objective was to maintain order. When used well, these rules create an orderly debate. There are several key principles that are at the core of the application of Robert's Rules. These principles are essentially rules for the rules. However, they are also common sense for how to run a meeting of a large deliberative body. They're described in the final pages of the introduction to the book, and I'll present them here, but in no particular order. One principle is to discuss one subject at a time. This is part of keeping the meeting orderly and efficient. Whatever is the topic at hand, that is what's discussed, and that must be finished or disposed of before a new topic is allowed to be raised. So, if you have an issue that you want to bring before the body, look at the agenda and determine what's the right time to do that. Otherwise, the comments won't be allowed. In addition to one topic at a time, there's the principle of one person speaking at a time. Whoever is officiating the meeting will recognize who has the floor and is entitled to be speaking to the rest of the body. If someone disagrees or has additional information, they must indicate their desire to speak and wait for the chairman to recognize them. We'll talk more about how to make motions and how to engage in debate in later sessions. Another principle is that all members have equal rights. A point I want to highlight in that statement is the term members. It's the members who have equal rights, not just those in attendance. Observers who are not members do not have any rights and cannot speak unless the chairman invites them to participate in the debate because of the expertise they have or some other special knowledge. This is one of the reasons we always credential attendees at the beginning of our meetings to determine who is a member and therefore has a right to speak. Another principle is that the majority rules, but the rights of the minority are protected. The minority can provide alternate options for consideration and can voice their support or opposition to whatever is being proposed at the time. They cannot filibuster or veto, but their voice is heard. In some cases, the bylaws or the rules will require that there be a 2/3 majority, a supermajority, instead of just a simple 50% plus one vote in order for a motion to pass. Finally, Robert's rules promote full and free discussion of every proposal or motion. That does not mean a person can filibuster. The chairman or the body can put limits on the remarks, but those limits apply equally to everyone. Also, the chairman should be encouraging debate by alternating the speakers between one who is supporting the motion and one who is opposed to the motion. In the interest of time, limits can be set on how many speakers for each side, let's say 5 per side, or how long they can speak, 30 seconds or a minute. This is usually done for efficient time management. The proponents and opponents of a measure should think ahead of time who will be their speakers so that they can make the best use of the allotted time. These principles are implemented throughout the various rules. In the other videos in this series, I'll discuss things like the roles of individuals, setting the agenda, making motions, how to vote, even the different types of meetings that we hold.
Okay, that was the introduction. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, any critiques of what you've seen us do wrong in our own meetings? You see why I like? Oh, he's raising his hand.
No, I'm kidding.
This is our secretary. He's our secretary for the Greenville County Republican Party. So he is in charge of keeping track of names as people come up to speak at the mic. That's why we're trying to emphasize more. Identify your name and your precinct, and then speak. But we need people to clearly do that. So when he prepares the meetings, we can follow it. Yes, the
I
meeting.
didn't catch what they said that the minorities can do.
Filibuster. They don't. What we're trying to do is make sure the minority does not sit there and take over a meeting, and because we want the meeting to be orderly, we want them to be heard, we want them to have a voice, and we don't have that many issues, too many issues with the Greenville County Republic. But think about ourselves, being in the minority, with the state party, we don't really get a voice at the state convention, and what we may do is take a state convention video and break it down and show exactly how they, the term will be ramrodded over the America First MAGA violated rights. I think in some senses, rules were not followed. Certainly, and they were not followed by people that knew Robert's rules, talked fast, and kind of just ramrodded over you. So what we want our people to do is feel confident about the rules, understand what the process is about. It's not that we want to become what we're working on purging. We don't want to become Drew McKissick and the SCGOP leadership. I want people that disagree with us here in the Greenville County Republican Party to have a voice. We invite them, come talk to us, come ask questions. What you'll find out is they really don't want a voice. They just want to disrupt the meetings. They don't want to come talk to us and figure out how to solve something.
If you say point of order, they can still.
Yeah, well, they can. A point of order is a question, and Dr. Sheen will talk about some of those different types of motions and things like that. But when you don't understand what's going on, or you're not, you can ask for a point of order, a point of clarification, some things like that. But he'll have some of those in here, and we'll talk about that. Yes.
What are the avenues of curtailing filibuster?
Well, that's what we'll talk about. Some of that too. Yes, you can do that. You can limit debate. Like we did last time. I think we said 3 for the motion, 3 against, and limit it to 2 minutes or whatever.
Consist of filibuster.
Not officially, but. we did.
Well, I mean, it ultimately they will end up frustrating the entire body, and then there's ways to deal with members who are doing that, and we'll talk about a little bit about that in what we're working on trying to do. So here's
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. In this set of videos, we are introducing our members to the different aspects of Robert's Rules of Order. This particular video, we're going to focus on different types of meetings that we hold. The first meeting to discuss is the convention. These are normally held on an annual or biannual basis. In our case, it's a biannual basis. Robert's Rule 58 and 59 address how to organize and run a convention. A convention is different from a mass meeting. A mass meeting is open to the public. A convention is closed. Only the delegates are able to participate. Conventions are made up of delegates who've been selected to attend the convention. In our case, the delegates are selected by the precincts. The number of delegates from each precinct is based upon the number of votes in that precinct. The delegates are selected at precinct reorganization meetings, which occur biannually based upon our state GOP rules. The delegates from the precinct must be properly credentialed to participate in the convention. There are rules for both state and county conventions that are found in the state GOP bylaws and in most GOP county bylaws. In addition, most conventions adopt a set of convention rules or standing rules as part of the first order of business. The description of the convention in the bylaws and the standing rules will identify who is qualified to vote in the convention. It's common for delegates to have alternates who can become voting members at the convention if a primary delegate is not able to attend. The alternate list for a precinct is provided to the credentialing committee, and it should be listed in the order in which the alternates will be called to replace an absent delegate. Prior to the start of the convention, delegates go through the credentialing process. Depending upon the rules of the convention, there may be other observers or guests who are in attendance, although they are not permitted to speak during the convention. For pre-existing organizations, such as our county or state GOP organization, there are 3 activities that must be done prior to the convention. These are normally performed by a standing committee or a special committee appointed by the organization's chair or executive committee. I'll talk more about committee work in another video. However, one of the activities of these committees is to establish the list of credentialed delegates. This is normally done by the organization's credentialing committee. The second activity is to create a set of standing rules for the convention. In our county, this is done by the Rules and Resolutions Committee. The third activity is to create an agenda for the meeting. There is an agenda template found in the state GOP rules. However, if there are key business items that need to be addressed in the convention, those should be added to the agenda. The agenda is normally prepared by a committee appointed by the chair. Following the opening ceremonies of the convention, temporary officers are elected, and then the reports of these 3 committees that were acting prior to the convention are presented. And if applicable, a motion is made to adopt their proposed agenda, rules, or accept the credentialing committee's report. The reports can be debated and amended. Once those have been adopted, the business of the convention can be conducted. In our convention, we elect the county or state officers, modify bylaws, and adopt resolutions that deal with fundamental principles or policy. Now, let's switch gears and talk about the executive committee. This is the primary business meeting of the state or county Republican Party. Many of the principles are the same. However, Rule 9 of Robert's Rules addresses how regular business meetings of an assembly should be conducted. The meeting should be conducted at least quarterly. The meeting needs an agenda, and the attendees need to be credentialed. For these meetings, a quorum must also be established. The rules for a quorum are found in the state or county bylaws. The nature of the quorum may vary based upon the business to be conducted. These executive committee meetings is where the business of the organizations is being conducted. Other videos in this series will address the correct order of business in these meetings, the roles of the different officers, and how members can participate by making motions and voting. I'll finish this video with some comments about the committee meetings. Rule 50 addresses committee meetings, and committees are a subset of the full assembly that focus on a specific topic or an item of the assembly's business. When a committee is formed, there should be a charter for the committee that states its purpose and prescribes the authority of the committee. The committee should be prepared to report back to the assembly periodically with a description of what they've accomplished. In many cases, the committee will bring the results to the assembly and make recommendations in the form of a motion or a resolution for the assembly to adopt. Meetings are how we conduct the business of our organizations. In other videos, I'll discuss how Robert's rules apply to the way the meeting should be run.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Any questions about that? He talked a little bit about conventions, and I think we'll go back, as I said, do a full video on conventions because there's a lot to it, and it's really critical that, you know, our folks get elected to leadership in their own counties. And you'll see that one of the big issues that actually has come up and has been discussed in the reorg of 25 was the convention in Charleston. And in the Charleston County Convention, they literally had two sides that were battling. You had the establishment, and then you had the America First folks that were down there. They were pretty evenly matched. Even if it's 45-55 one way or the other, don't you think when you have a vote, it probably shouldn't be a voice vote? They literally ruled on a voice vote. That was run by Andrew Boucher, who's the current chair, or the current chair from last time down there. He picked the president, or he picked on a voice vote who was going to be president of the convention. The person who is president of the convention obviously then gets to rule how he or she feels like, and that's why they ruled on a voice vote. Now, I've heard the audio tapes. The audio tapes, you know, it sounds pretty close, you know, but I mean, if we had anything, if it's not 75, 80% to 20%, it shouldn't be ruled on a voice vote. If we have something at our meeting and it sounds like it's something close, the chair can say, oh, well, you know, the opinion of the chair, you know, the ayes have it or the nays have it. But if it's close, we're going to do a vote. And there's different ways, and Dr. Sheen will talk about the different ways of standing votes and ballots and all that kind of stuff. But that's why I'm saying the conventions are very, very important, and the establishment has a way of ramrodding it down our throats. My theory and what I preach and talk to other counties about is you have to show up with 75% of the people. If you show up with 3-1, there's no way they're going. I mean, that's what happened in our convention of 2023. Thankfully, the individual who was the initial convention president was unwilling to cheat. You know, he was leaving he worked for the SCGOP. He was going to be leaving afterwards. He had another job. Thankfully, and I'm sure he got chewed out because of it. But what they did is they voice vote. It was initially about who was going to be the temporary president of the convention. And it was, you know, we were putting up Dr. Sheen, they were putting up, you know, somebody else. I can't even remember who it was. You know, but a voice vote, he didn't rule one way or the other because it was too close. And then we tried to do a standing vote. Mm-hmm. And then I think they did a division and had everybody stand on, you know, for this person on this side. And then it was so obvious. It was, oh, we won. But I mean, if that individual had opened up, you know, the convention and said, oh, in the opinion of the temporary chair or whatnot, you know, it would, you know, he could have gone the other way when we would have lost. Yes, they did. They have, and they've done it at every convention. So consistently, that is why we're preparing now. Reorg is not until how many people have participated in reorg in the past? About everybody, but we highly encourage it. This is how we take back our party and our country and all that type of good stuff. But you know, we've seen it, and we can't do it. We can't allow them to do it. But the real way to do it is to show up with 75% of the people. If you don't, it'll be too close, and they can call it one way or the other. Yes.
You can try to challenge the ruling of the chair.
It doesn't work.
It does.
Well,
it in theory is supposed to. But
for a standing vote, you can call for
How do you go list?
At the convention, well, they already violated the rules the night before.
Yeah.
And when
Right.
I had Joe read the rule, they gavelled him down.
Yeah.
So-
Yes. And that's what happened to Pickens. And we have some Pickens people in the house.
Yeah.
You know, they ramrodded through something that, you know, Pickens didn't do anything wrong, but they claimed that they did. You know, I'm barred from state executive committee meetings, not because I did anything wrong, because they claim I did. And they have, but it exposes them when they do these things. But the real thing is, and people, you know, and I got chastised by somebody, you know, I hate to say chastised, but, oh, you know, you just have to know Robert's rules better. I'm like, I can know it perfectly, but if you don't have 75% of the people there, you know, you're going, they're going to,
Yeah.
oh yeah. We're working on it. We'll talk about it more. We're going to expose it more, and we're going to call out the people that are doing it. And that's what we have to do. We have to call out the people that did what they did to Pickens. But let's get to the next one. Anyway.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. In this particular video, I'll be talking about the role of the chairperson. In a nutshell, the chair's primary role is to ensure the meeting runs smoothly and according to parliamentary procedure. In order to do this, the chair has several specific duties with respect to the conduct of the meeting. These duties are outlined in Robert's Rule 47-7. Keep in mind that these rules apply to the chairperson at all meetings, including conventions, executive committee meetings, and committee meetings. The chairperson is the person who ensures that the meetings are conducted in good order and according to the rules. One responsibility is to call the meeting to order. Now, this is a pretty basic responsibility, but it is a vitally important one. Until the meeting is called to order, no business or debate should be transacted. But as soon as the meeting is called to order, then Robert's rules apply, and we should be taking minutes of the meeting. Another duty is to recognize speakers and designate who has the floor. The chair has some latitude to decide how to do this based upon the facility or the venue and the size of the meeting. For instance, when there is a large group meeting in a large event space, the chair may require that people come forward to a microphone to be recognized to speak. But in a small committee meeting of half a dozen people sitting around a table, that would be ridiculous. Of special note is that when a meeting is being conducted virtually, the chair will unmute the person or ask them to unmute themselves. The chair should recognize any member who is requesting to speak to the body, as long as the member follows the rules for how to request a recognition. Another rule of the chair is to ensure any motions are clearly stated for the body so that they know what is being debated or voted on. The chair may ask that the person presenting the motion repeat it back, or the chair may ask the secretary to read it back, but it's not an official motion until the chair states it. In this way, the chair can ensure that there is no switch in topics, but that the debate stays on the motion that was raised. The chair is also the person who puts a motion to vote. I'll discuss voting more in another video. At this time, it's sufficient to say that when a voice vote is used, the chairman decides, based on the volume, which side has won the vote. If it's a physical vote of some type, raising a hand or standing, the chairman may employ a teller committee to assist in counting the members. The chair then states the final results of the vote. Another key role is for the chair to maintain order during a meeting. That means that they ensure that the body is following Robert's rules for debate. They ensure every member has an opportunity to voice their opinion. So they're ensuring that the meeting stays on track, there's an orderly debate, and let's talk a little bit about what they do during the meeting. It's also important that the chairman remains impartial and avoids expressing personal opinions on any matter being debated before the assembly. If the chair has an opinion or information that they believe the rest of the members of the body should hear, the chair should hand over the role of the presiding officer to another person who is an officer of the assembly. At that point, the chair can now engage in debate as though they were just a normal member. This is also the reason that all motions should be made by members or committees, but not by the chair. The chair is to ensure fairness during the debate. the chair should never engage in any type of back and forth with members about an issue. Even when the chair is a credentialed member of the assembly, they should not express an opinion on any motion or vote unless it's a secret ballot. Their vote is reserved for breaking a tie if there is a tie among the members of the assembly. Notice that the chair is essentially a benevolent dictator during the meeting. They are the person calling the meeting together. They recognize who can speak and who cannot, and they conduct the voice votes. That is the dictator part of being a benevolent dictator. They ensure that all sides of an issue are presented, and they ensure that the debate is handled with decorum. Finally, they should not be endorsing one side or the other in a debate. That's the benevolent side of being a benevolent dictator. The body should never know which side the chair favors based upon how they run the meeting. The role of the chairperson in a meeting or convention is a critically important one, but they're not the only ones in the meeting. In another video, we'll talk about some of the other roles and the officers associated with the meetings.
So the other officers will be picked on in the next video. I was obviously picked on in this video. It's a difficult thing. I mean, technically the chair should be a neutral bystander in making sure the meeting runs appropriately and all that kind of stuff. We do express a little bit more of an opinion. We have gotten into back and forth with people and things like that, especially in my case, when I see people misleading the body or doing things, things like that, or accusing us of things that we haven't done. But we're working on it, and we're trying to be better on all that type of stuff. But because, again, I will emphasize, we do not want to become what we are working to purge. We are trying to set up something that will be always there. But that's why we have open meetings. That's why we have, discussions about the topics for a meeting before the meetings, and these open forum kind of coffee and politics. And I think I brought up at 2 meetings ago, the June meeting, has anyone ever tried to meet with me or talk with us about something that we refused to meet with them? And there wasn't a single person in there that could raise their hand, because we will. But I will tell you, I've never met with and or talked to Drew McKissick. I've never met with and talked to a lot of people on the state executive committee, the chairs of other counties or ECs of other counties that accuse us of all kinds of stuff all the time. We have people here in this county that accuse us of things that have never come to talk to us about it. There's actually an EC, and we'll talk about what you can do for disciplining members or bringing it to attention of the rest of the body. That publicly put out yesterday when we were talking about having this meeting. Somebody clicked that they were coming, and the person made a comment, who's an EC of one of the precincts, said, "Oh, well, that's funny and laughable, and the chair doesn't follow Robert's Rules of Order and all this." That's why people, and one of the initiatives we talked about yesterday at Coffee and Politics is to get more people to participate. We want more voter turnout. Well, guess why people don't turn out? Because folks are on there, fighting on social media and saying all this nasty stuff. I wouldn't want to participate in this group if I really believed everything I read on social media. That's what we have to do. And I'm kind of calling it the, Be Better, voter turnout initiative or whatever. We got politicians that sanction what people are saying on social media that are not true and that are lies. I've got a politician in Anderson County that accused me of being paid and an operative of the left and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we all do, but but that's from literally an elected official.
Yeah.
He did, yeah, but he paid for it. So.
It's not red.
It's not
And it didn't have a bow on it. It's signed by Drew McKissick.
Right. So he hasn't gone to the dark side yet. But I'm like, if I'm getting paid, please let me get my direct deposit in, because I need that paperwork. But that's the types of things that are out there. We are trying to do better. We've got our rules folks, and they pull me to the side. And that's even with Dr. Sheen, from when we first got involved in this in 21, I told him if he ever sees me doing anything that we shouldn't be doing, he has complete veto rights over what I did. Can stop me, stop the meeting, stop whatever. And I guess we've never gone too far in anything, but and he's a very respected person in this county and across the state. So.
Parliamentarian doesn't rule. The parliamentarian just advises the chair.
But if he advises me that we're doing something,
Come up to you, I come up to you. more to.
And Greg Peck is our rules chair. So
More to keep you on target.
yeah, we used to have meetings that would last till past midnight in the old days, and I was more than happy to let people talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Because to me that exposes them more than it exposes us. And in contrary to my predecessor, we never number one, we never disrupted meetings. They were elected, they had to do what they do, and we were not there to disrupt meetings. But one time, Presley Stutz tried to do a Second Amendment motion or whatnot, and Nate Loip shut him down completely. I mean, Second Amendment, it wasn't attacking them, it was just trying to support some Second Amendment, and he shut down completely. That is improper as well. I mean, if the minority in this county wanted to do a Second Amendment motion or resolution or something, bring it to us early, let us talk about it, let's get it on the agenda, and let's get it passed. The old establishment here should have been all about a Second Amendment motion. So, but it was more out of spite, just to shut Presley down. So that's what we do not want to be. So let's go on to officers and committees.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. In order to assist our members with the application of Robert's Rules of Order, we've created this series of videos. This video will be addressing the roles of some of the officers and committees of the organization. The first role to discuss is the role of secretary. The duties are outlined in Robert's Rule 47-32. The secretary records and documents the actions taken by the assembly. Note that the meeting's recording secretary does not need to be the organization's corresponding secretary. For instance, at a convention, the convention's recording secretary is the person who takes the minutes of the convention, but that doesn't mean that they have to be the secretary for everything else in the organization. The secretary is responsible for all the records of the organization except the financial records. This includes membership rolls, meeting minutes, meeting notices, bylaws, and assisting the chairman to create an agenda for each of the meetings. The secretary must also make the records of the organization available to members upon request. With respect to meetings, the secretary creates the minutes of the meeting. These should include the attendance, the agenda, and any motions made and actions taken on those motions. The secretary can use technical tools to assist them, such as a recording device or even having an AI assistant taking the notes. But the secretary is still responsible for the accuracy of the minutes. The minutes for a meeting are normally accepted at the next meeting. These may be distributed to the members ahead of time or read out loud during the next meeting so that the members can then approve the minutes. Another officer is the treasurer. The duties are listed in Robert's Rule 47-38. This individual maintains the financial records of the assembly. The treasurer reports on the financial records according to the requirements of the bylaws or at the behest of the organization. When financial reports are presented at a meeting, they do not require a approval from the assembly. The assembly does not have the authority to modify financial records from what has actually happened. The records should be a factual account of what has occurred, both the deposits and what is spent. The body can make decisions about how to spend money in the future, but they can't change the past. Another officer to discuss is the Sergeant at Arms. The duties are listed in Robert's Rule 47-40. This individual assists the chairman of a meeting to maintain order and decorum. The individual is normally responsible for setting up the physical arrangements in the meeting space. The business of the organization is also conducted through committees. Robert's Rules for committees is found in Section 50. There are standing committees which operate continually for the life of the assembly. An example of this would be the Credentialing Committee. In contrast, there are select or special committees with a special purpose and operate until that purpose is fulfilled, and they are then disbanded. An example of this would be a committee to plan the Christmas party. Regardless of the type of committee, committee members are assigned in accordance with the organization's rules. The members could be appointed or they could be elected. In fact, a committee could use a combination of both methods to establish its membership. It just depends on the rules of the organization. Committees normally meet separately from the main assembly and report back to the main assembly. Committees need to appoint or elect a chairman, and minutes of the committee meetings should be created. When a committee finishes a portion of their business or purpose, it should provide a report to the main assembly. In most cases, the committee reports will be an item on the agenda, and the committee provides its report at that time. The reports could be a written report or an oral report. A committee can include in its report a resolution or a motion to be voted on by the assembly. If the motion is made by the committee, no second is required, and that's because you've got multiple committee members already involved. I'll talk more about making motions in another video. One other comment about committees. Robert's Rule 49 discusses the executive board or executive committee. We use that term for our normal business meetings. This group consists of one representative from each precinct at the county level or from each county at the state level. The bylaws describe the authority of the executive committee. Officers and committees are important elements in how the business of the organization is conducted. In other videos, we'll talk more about the roles of each member and how to make motions and how to vote.
Okay. There's our secretary, our treasurer, our events committee. She perked up. You heard her events. She perked up when she found out that the sergeant of arms is supposed to set the room up.
Yeah, we did.
I didn't know that either.
That anymore.
Right. So I wish we could have edited that out.
No.
So yes, sir. Right.
What he meant to say is they designed the setup of the room, not place chairs and tables.
Wow. Those are fighting words now. Yeah. Yes, sir. Right.
Replaced the role at the last business meeting. There was some disruption with people that wanted to change things that have already been approved, meeting minutes and such, well in the past. Is there any way to get around that or put something in the agenda that says,
Well,
that was a waste of.
It was, and meeting, we don't vote on the treasurer's report. She presents it and answers questions, so there's no vote on it. We present the meeting minutes, which we send to people early before the meeting, and there is an official vote on the meeting minutes because maybe there's edits or fixes, or even if old minutes. I got no problem fixing old minutes that have been approved and need to be. Somebody's figured out an edit. That's okay. The frustration that we have, and that what you pointed out, is these people don't bring it to us beforehand, and that's what we want to teach the body about. Is that they have had an opportunity. If they see a problem in the minutes, let us know, and let us know early so we can go ahead and get it fixed and get it approved. That's partially why we didn't do it before the last meeting. We didn't have pre-meetings to kind of talk about and answer any questions because I didn't think there'd be any issues, but people brought it up. I remember Everett Headley here several years ago brought up that his name was misspelled in the minutes. He could have easily sent an email and said, hey, correct this in the minutes. But no, Everett wanted to make a scene and he wanted to have the microphone and stand up there and cause issues and problems. That, to me, how you correct that is we get the whole body to realize that person is really just, causing a ruckus as opposed to trying to, be a good member and point things out. And then we can eventually discipline them or censure them or something of that nature. I hope we don't have to go that far, but we do need to call attention to people that are being disruptive as opposed to, conducting the business.
This is a larger issue though. And I think a very simple way is to be able to set rules, because
and we can.
The meeting minutes are not verbatim. They are synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you should be sending ahead of time. And if you do have an issue, it should be given to the secretary, and then it can be deliberated and decided whether or not it wants to be changed. People think that they can stand up there and pontificate and make a big deal, and that insinuating that he is doing something wrong when that is not the issue. And if we set clear standards in the beginning, we can then shut that down the next time it comes up.
And I agree completely.
We're up to this.
Yeah. She's being added to the rules committee. But that is what we're trying to do. And I will tell you, and even on the other side, I've told people that are in our side, MAG America First people that are in the minority, don't go and do that stuff at a Rhino meeting. Don't make a fool of yourself, because you end up pushing more people away. They are pushing, they have, the minority here that has done those little silly things are mad and upset. And there you got the derangement syndrome, the Jeff Davis, just like Trump derangement syndrome. So they sit there and cause this ruckus, but it ends up pushing other people our way. Certainly when they understand what is going on in the meeting. Yes.
Some of the things I'm trying to do, and I don't know if it's the right way to go or not, we're going to talk after the meeting, hopefully you still have time, but is to make it where you read it and it doesn't have the sharpness that the people that are trying to cause problems in the meetings. It's like the information's still there, but it's worded in a way that it doesn't really have that sharpness. It's recorded, but it's not, it doesn't have that impact that they want in the minutes.
Well, meeting minutes, I guess, should be kind of just restating what occurred.
Yeah.
But we really, I mean, if you look at what the Greenville County Republican Party does, we want to be as transparent as possible. We post our meeting minutes. We post our treasurer's reports. We post our annual budget. I want everybody to see everything, and that's that. If we're doing something wrong, somebody's going to point it out, right? If it's transparent like that, and we can fix it because we want to fix it. But with the meeting minutes, we'll put the minutes, we'll put a transcript, we'll put the video, and we'll put all the attachments and handouts for that day.
Part of the reason why I'm okay with changing the minutes and the past have been approved is that, look, if you watch the video and you see something missed, why not?
Right.
As long as it falls within the guidelines of the synopsis, not a word by word.
Right. And that's why we'll say the minutes, meeting minutes, and a transcript. You want transcript, AI can produce it and knock yourself out. But they don't need to get down in every little single thing is in there.
Whatever works for the body.
Yeah, we'll get there. That's all fine. But what I do want to point out, what I thought was very interesting that I was always not aware of, is if it comes out of a committee, there does not have to be a second. So the rules committee promotes something, there does not have to be a second. That type of stuff. There are different types, and partially while we're going through this, because we're rewriting our Greenville rules, number one, so they'll be clear. We don't elect a sergeant of arms. We elect all these, treasurer and a secretary, and the vice chairs, but we don't elect a teller committee, and we don't, elect a credentialing committee. It's a chair appoints those, but we elect 4 standing committees. And then we have, just so everybody knows, we have a bunch of other committees with the GCRP, but it's really, those other committees are not formal committees, can set up some formals, but they're really our MAGA America First caucus committees. So, it allows them to be a little more flexible in what they do.
Can I add one thing?
Yep.
I want to move to the budget. It seems, from what I heard, the budget is just a presentation of the budget. There shouldn't be any questioning on why are we spending money on this?
Did he talk about the budget there?
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
No, it's not the budget, I'm sorry, the treasurer.
Treasurer's report.
It was a financial.
Yeah. Well, the budget should be discussed. The treasurer's report is just historical what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's always people going up questioning, why are we spending money on this?
Which is okay. That's, the body should ask that, and that's okay. And just so everybody knows, in our rules, the chair can spend up to $1,000. But if there's any time we spend over $1,000, I have to get the executive board to approve it. And we're very transparent in everything we do anyhow.
I got
So.
a question, Greg, on that. If you're presenting the treasurer's report, it's a historical document as such. Any questions about that should be brought up as new business as opposed to a historical document.
Well, what would happen is they would ask questions.
Yeah, again, when the treasurer reports on the income and expenses of the previous month, that's a historic event.
Right.
All that person is doing is saying, here's where we got income, here's where we had expenses. If you're questioning why those expenses, again, based on our rules and the rules of the state party and the rules of the national party, the executive board has the ability to spend money. They're given that privilege. They're given that authority. If you don't like what they're doing, then you vote them at the next convention.
Or you bring it up as new business,
You can
because
bring it up as
just
new business.
technically we follow what the body tells us to do. That's what we
my
do.
question is,
Yeah.
should it be brought up in the report or is new business?
Is new business of how we're going to spend our money.
Right.
But they can come talk to us
That would
anyhow.
be
Not the
future
$50 we
expenses.
spend
Yeah,
every
that would be
month.
future expenses.
Well,
Yes.
my question is, what
It would be new
place
business.
in the agenda do you address that?
I would say new business. Hey,
My only question of addressing it is, at what point do you address it?
That would be a motion in new business.
Okay.
And hopefully it's a simple motion, because if it's a complex motion, it should be tabled and then reviewed.
but that's why they should bring those questions to us beforehand.
Going back to Scott's role as secretary, minutes are a summary of what occurred, not a detailed report of what occurred.
Yeah.
And we need to emphasize that, and I've been talking about
Speak
that
loud.
now for what, about a year?
Yeah.
We need to make sure that at the beginning of every meeting, whether it be a regular business meeting or a special business meeting, minutes are just a summary of what's happened.
Speaking loud, if they could hear.
The fact that your name wasn't mentioned is irrelevant.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing is that I just want to
Let's-
say this. And
let's
I'll
go quickly.
Stop beating the dead horse, but if you don't say your name and precinct at the mic, I don't know who you are. A lot of you I do know, but not everybody.
Right.
And so, and it's like, the votes and whatnot, that has to audibly be called out in the meeting.
Yep.
Your name has to be audible, or I won't know
Yeah,
who you
that's-
are.
yeah.
And there's a good chance your name's not even gonna be added anyway unless it's a motion.
And it should just reference the EC of this precinct.
Yeah,
or that. You're not supposed, one of the
That's
things
the
is you
name.
don't use
Yeah,
names.
Actually, I don't think you have to need to say, you just have the one that there was a debate on the motion.
Yeah, and you can keep it that short on some
Oh,
things,
you mean-
especially since we're now adding
I
a
always try to
transcript.
Add names, but
Yeah.
if we could say a motion for this, it'd even be better because it takes the
Yeah.
individual out of it.
Yep.
And just focuses on the motion.
Right. So let's go on to the next one. Members. Members have, and I remember this, they have duties, or they have, rights and responsibilities. So if you're a member of this organization or your respective county organization, you have certain responsibilities. You have rights for sure, but you have responsibilities too. So that's what I think is a key to that. So let's go to section 5, members.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. In this set of videos, we're introducing our members to Robert's Rules of Order and how they can apply them in our meetings. This video is going to focus on the role of members of the organization. Regardless of whether attending a convention or a regular executive committee business meeting or even a committee meeting, the attendees fall into categories members of the assembly and guests or visitors to the assembly. Robert's Rule 1-4 addresses members. Members of the assembly at a convention are elected by their precincts. The number of delegates varies from precinct to precinct and are established at the time of precinct reorganization. Members of the assembly and the county executive committee meeting are also elected by the precinct members and are the sole voice for their precinct at the meeting. Members of committees are either elected by the executive committee or appointed by the chairman. Anyone who's not a member is a guest. There are only two categories, members and guests. Members of an assembly have the right to attend the meetings of the assembly, make motions, participate in debates, vote on matters before the assembly. The bylaws of the organization will provide guidance on when and how members can lose those rights and be replaced by someone else. For instance, the Greenville County rules and bylaws state that a person who moves outside the bounds of a precinct can no longer act as an executive committee person for that precinct. The precinct should meet to elect a new member for the executive committee. When attending meetings, an individual will likely need to present their credentials to the appropriate credentialing officials to ensure that they are authorized members of the assembly. In another video, I'll discuss the procedure for making motions. However, a person should expect when coming to a microphone or stage as a speaker that they will need to state their name and the precinct that they represent. This will hold for any time they intend to speak to the members of the assembly. With respect to debate on issues, members should provide any relevant information they might have, any insight they have or expert opinion about the issue. However, if they have questions, they should also ask those questions in the debate so that they can get their answers and have an informed vote when it comes time to voting on an issue. Which means that members are expected to vote on issues, on all the motions and business matters brought before the assembly. If they don't understand a topic being debated, they should ask for clarification before voting. The organization will normally have rules for how proxies are designated or alternates are upgraded to a membership status. For instance, if the executive committee person not in attendance at executive committee meeting of the Greenville County GOP, the precinct's president is automatically designated the proxy. The proxies or upgraded alternates have full rights of membership for the duration of the meeting. Anyone who is a visitor or guest, including alternates that have not been upgraded, does not have the right to speak on business matters before the assembly. Now, a guest may have been invited to deliver a speech or a program for the meeting. In that case, they can obviously speak to fulfill their role for which they were invited. In addition, a visitor or guest may contribute to a debate if they have unique insight and are invited by the chairperson to speak on a topic before the assembly. When that is the case, a member of the assembly should make the chairman aware of the individual's expertise, and the chair will then determine whether they can speak. However, guests cannot make motions, second motions, or vote. They can only provide facts and expert opinion on a topic. The chairperson may also ask non-members to leave a meeting when there is some private business to be discussed, such as disciplining a member. This condition is addressed in Robert's Rules 9, 25, and 26. In that case, the chair will ask the sergeant-at-arms to clear the room of everyone who is not a member or is not specifically invited to stay because they are needed in order to conduct the business matter. Also, an audio or video recording of the proceedings should stop during the closed session. During any meeting, both members and guests are expected to act with decorum. Robert's Rules 43-19 through 28 list the expected standards of decorum. These include addressing all comments to the chairperson, not to other members of the assembly, confining remarks to the topic being debated, never attacking another member's motives, avoiding the use of another member's name, acting in a manner that disturbs or disrupts the assembly, and not speaking against their own motion. One final point. Robert's Rule 43-29 notes that normally the chairperson does not participate in a debate. However, in those rare occasions when the chairperson has unique insight or knowledge that has not yet been brought to the attention of the assembly, and the chairperson is a credentialed member of the assembly, the chair can then hand over the responsibility of chairmanship to another member of the assembly, and they then can participate as a normal member. The new chairperson must remain as the chair until that motion or resolution has been resolved. At that point in time, they can restore the chairmanship back to the original chair. Members have both rights and responsibilities. In other videos, we'll discuss how to make motions and how to do voting.
Oops, there we go. I'm unmuted. There's a lot there. We have had members, make a motion and speak against their own motion. That's kind of out there. I engage in a tad bit more debate than I should, but I would be handing over the.
Well,
gavel
usually,
Every 5 seconds.
they said, if you have the expertise, you can. We
Can,
know
so-
you do have expertise.
May have the expertise, but technically, I'm supposed to hand it to someone else.
Yeah.
To be the innocent or the
Yeah.
neutral bystander. Yes.
I won't talk to you later about that.
Oh, more he's going to talk to me about. So, but there's a lot to it, and we've never gone into an executive session to talk about that. I personally would say if we were going to do that, we would have a special called meeting to discipline or discuss, and then it wouldn't be but we've had guests, and one of the debates that we have with the Greenville County Republican Party is the EC of the precinct and or their proxy is a member of the executive committee, but do we let presidents speak too? Because presidents are usually pretty involved, and I have a pretty open policy of letting everyone. I think we've concluded, let the ECs and let the president speak, but you could limit it just to ECs or their proxy.
It's a gray area.
It's great. Yeah.
Prior group, if you were an EC, they didn't want you to talk at all. Which is
Yeah.
why when Presley made that motion, Nate shut him down, and I went to Presley and I said, give me the motion. And he shut me down too.
Well, and you were an EC. And Presley may have just been a president at the
Yeah, he
time.
was.
Is that what it
He
was?
was
Yes,
president.
yes. So,
Do
you know,
y'all have requests from guests that you provide an opportunity for public comments, and do you ever allow that? I mean, other than an invited presentation?
I personally would, certainly if they had something to contribute to the motion, kind of as an expert, if they wanted to could add something to it.
But not necessarily, like we've gotten some pushback on, y'all should allow a time for public comments
No.
without them saying,
Not for not for six, they can be there forever. Our town halls are fine.
Town
I've
hall.
heard it too, we're in the same.
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
And the six seat is,
we added it to our agenda because we had so many people saying,
Oh,
they
yeah.
used to allow public comments, and now, and of course, they want to come up and
What we used to do here is at the end of the meeting, we would allow questions, people to come up, make questions, that type of thing. I do know Spartanburg is they have like a 30-minute open mic in the beginning, and they're like, well, that gets a little rowdy.
Honestly, those meetings are quarterly business meetings.
For us, they're quarterly
You
business
present
meetings.
The business of the
Yeah.
party. So if you want to have open in the front or open at the end, it's one thing, but during the business meeting, you have to address those items.
they're making it sound like we're not receptive.
Of course.
to-
well.
Of course, yes, that's the whole point.
We're
Yes,
actually going to have a trial this next
Trial.
meeting for one of our members, and
a trial of a member or trial of letting people speak.
no, we're.
An actual trial.
We're going to remove
So you're
an
gonna say,
EC.
Wow. Okay.
We're going to have a six seat trial.
Okay.
And we've given her, unless she takes the option we gave her to resign for a year.
Oh.
But we're gonna give her the full punishment if she doesn't.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people thinking they have a right to put in their 10 cents that are not members.
No.
A lot of them not even Form 1 members.
Yeah. So if they're not a member, for sure, in your business meeting.
They don't
But-
even speak.
Yeah. And y'all have town halls. Y'all do a lot, and y'all are out of Oconee. Y'all do a lot of those town halls. We do our coffee and politics. I will meet with anybody, anytime, anywhere, any condition. So,
Jeff talked before, we have learned that people that want these open comments, whatever, it's not sincere.
It's to disrupt.
Yes.
It's not the regular concerned person that really want to bring something up. And for us, how we can easily identify it, because our office here is open 6 days a week. And Jeff had been out because he was sick, so he wasn't here all the time. But normally you can come here and he's here most of the time. If it's not here, there's someone at front desk. People leave notes, leave messages, set up meetings, and those that sincerely have an issue, that's when they come to resolve it. And those open mic things, we have learned our hard lesson. It was always people that just want to create,
If you want to have them at the end. That way they have to stay through everything.
Oh,
And then later, and the rest of your members can go if they want to.
our problem
Ron,
when we
and
had
then we'll go to David.
Yeah.
I've got a question about the executive sessions. Okay, in that, I know several bodies have their executive sessions at the end of the public meeting. They go into session, and then anything to be voted on, they will come back to the public. So that could be a half hour, an hour later, and so everybody's gone, so they're not open to the public actually.
Well, they discuss in the executive session. They're not supposed to take votes, and they should come back out. And that's the beauty about learning about this Robert's Rule stuff. You can see the similarities of what they do down in the state house or at your county council or town council, things like that. And you can see whether they're following the proper procedures too. Not every one of these groups follows Robert's Rules. There's some other things that are out there, but they should be a very similar orderly process. You should not be taking votes in executive session. They may have a big debate about something of censuring someone, and they'll come back and vote.
Such a long time frame, the public slept.
But that's just part of the fight for freedom. Yes, it's part of the fight for freedom. David?
I just want to say that if you want to have I don't agree with any sort of non-EC speaking at the meeting or any sort of open forum before or after. I mean, if you want, if you're just a visitor, if you want to make your voice heard, talk to your EC. before
Yes,
the meeting.
you're exactly right. If you've got a concern you want to bring to the body, talk to your EC.
It's a total distraction to go ahead and have other people talk.
And also, I don't know how about everyone here, but if I go as a visitor to any meeting or group, it would not even cross my mind that I want to stand in front of the new crowd that I may be just learning about or know nothing about and expect to be heard.
Yeah.
I don't know, just me.
And y'all saw that at our June meeting. There was somebody that came from Anderson. They said, "Oh, I have a business in Greenville, so I should be able to speak." That person literally, one of our sergeant of arms went up and wanted to satisfy them and said, "Hey, we'll set up a meeting with you and Jeff or whatever." And they came and asked me if I was okay with it. I went over, talked to her, and said, "Yes, I'm willing to have a meeting, whatever." And she's like, "Oh, well, maybe we can schedule something in a month."
It's been 3 months. We haven't heard from her.
Was that October? Yeah. Okay. So maybe it was October, or was it June meeting? Was it the June meeting? Yeah. So was it October? Whichever it was, it's been either 3 or 6 months. It's like they didn't want to meet. They don't want to talk. And I even volunteered to say, "Hey, I will do it on live if you want to do it on a live stream. I don't care."
All right, let's get going.
Let's go. Next is agenda. And Olga wants Mexican. We're all going to Mexican.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. We prepared this set of videos to assist our members in understanding how to apply Robert's Rules of Order to our meetings. In this video, I'll be discussing the agenda for the meeting. Meetings should always have an agenda. Robert's Rule 41 tells us that an agenda is the order of the business for the meeting. A well-prepared agenda will assist in the efficiency and effectiveness of the meeting. It ensures that all the topics are addressed and does so in an orderly manner. One of the first things done at any meeting is to approve the agenda for that meeting. Then anyone who brings business before the assembly must introduce it at the appropriate time. This helps the chair to keep things in order. In fact, it's the duty of the chair to follow the agenda. They cannot deviate from it or change the order without the approval of the assembly. Now, sometimes a chairperson may make a mistake or allow a debate to get off topic. At that point, any member of the assembly can call for the order of the day. This is a reminder to the chair and to the rest of the assembly that they must return to the agenda and follow it. Robert's Rule 41-5 provides a generic order of business for an agenda. Once the meeting comes to order and the opening ceremonies are completed, the order of business starts. First is the reading or approval of the previous minutes. Next is the report of the various officers, boards, or other standing committees. After that comes the report of any special or select committees. Then the assembly should address any special business that must be done. For instance, the Greenville County GOP must approve the annual budget at a meeting prior to February 10th of each year. After that, we move on to unfinished business, sometimes called old business, and then finally to any new business to be introduced. Now let's look at an agenda for conventions. The agenda for Republican Party County Convention in the state of South Carolina is dictated in the South Carolina GOP Rule 5-C. This agenda is a bit convoluted, but it is the rule. First, the meeting is called to order by the current county chairman or vice chairperson. Next, a temporary convention president, convention secretary, and credentialing committee are selected by the assembly. Normally at this time, a temporary set of convention rules are also adopted. The convention then waits for the credentialing committee to make its report on the number of delegates. Now a permanent convention president, convention secretary, and convention treasurer are elected. At this time, the convention rules and agenda can be revised since it's now clear who is a member of the convention. Next, the assembly elects the county chairperson, a vice chairman, and an executive committee person to represent the county at the state GOP executive committee meetings. The assembly may also elect other county officers. The convention can then conduct any other business that is before them. For instance, bylaws changes can be reviewed and approved. Also, any major resolutions pertaining to the goals or objectives of the organization should be introduced so they can be debated and voted upon. The state convention follows a similar agenda. The agenda order is found in the state GOP Rule 7-B. The convention is called to order by the state party chairman. A temporary convention president and secretary are elected. The credentialing committee makes its report. The convention then elects a permanent convention president, vice president, 2 convention secretaries, a treasurer, and any other convention officers they desire to elect. The convention assembly then elects the state chairperson and at least 1 vice chairperson. In presidential election years, the convention is then recessed and at a later time will be reconvened to elect a national committeeman, national committeewoman, at-large delegates for the national convention. An interesting aspect of the convention agenda in both the state and county conventions is how they end. According to the state GOP rules, the conventions are recessed, not adjourned. Robert's rules describe the difference. Normally a recess is for just a short break that allows the organization to then continue on with their meeting without going back through opening ceremonies and all the things associated with starting a meeting. However, if a convention is adjourned, that convention is dissolved, and a convention can't be recalled without new delegates being selected and having to go through all of the opening ceremonies and everything associated with that new convention. And that's why the state rules call for the conventions to just be recessed so that they can be reconvened without having to go through new delegate selection. The agenda or order of the day is the structure of the convention or the meetings, and it must be followed. It determines what can and cannot be discussed and when that will happen. It's more than just bureaucracy. It's the plan for an effective meeting. In other videos, we'll talk about how to do motions and how to do voting.
So you can see, you can spend a lot of time. This is just on agendas. We can spend a lot of time talking about agendas and all that kind of stuff. We always have been very good at putting an agenda out and holding to the agenda. I think one year, one meeting, several years ago, somebody wanted to change the order of a particular thing that we were doing. I think it was Stephen Brown wanted to change an issue, and I'm like, because they were accusing us of putting it toward the end. It was new business, putting it toward the end. And we were just going to run out of time for the meeting, and they wanted to move it to the front. And I'm like, no, trust me, I want to discuss this issue. We will get to it, But no, I think that even failed, as I recall, or maybe I can't remember exactly. But we were happy to go ahead and address it, and I think we did. And he lost the vote and resigned immediately thereafter. So, but that was how it works. But there's a lot of process to agendas. I will say Dr. Sheen made the comment that here in Greenville, we have to propose, and I don't know how they do it in Oconee. Y'all have an annual budget that y'all put up that the body approves?
Well, they're working on it.
They're working, but it's not, is it in your rules?
The last administration was given over $10,000 when they turned over the budget was just over $1,000. They did no fundraising or nothing. So
yeah.
Their only budget was to spend.
Yeah, but we actually have to present a budget and show it to the body, and it's pretty standard and simple in that sense. But our rules are confused because it says, it says by February 10th, but it's not clear whether you have to vote or you just have to present it. And we've done it both ways.
We made it an agenda item.
Really? Yeah.
It's an official item.
Well, that's just in an agenda, but if you have it in your rules, we're going to clarify our rules that it has to be submitted to the body by a certain date and then voted on at the next meeting, because it's even unclear for us. But realize, number one, the way a lot of these rules are written, they're written to be unclear. So they can manipulate you and say, oh, well, if I want to do something a particular way this year, I can say, well, the rules, I was there when we wrote the rules and this is what it meant. If I want to do something different the next year, I can say, well, read the plain language and the intent. It should be this way.
Yeah.
So
talk about that too. I'll go back one slide. When they're talking about you establish your rules at your convention, the last group locked our rules so that we, as the new administration, couldn't change our bylaws. So we'll fix that this reorg.
So way to lock
They
Well,
it.
that, yeah, I don't think there's a way to lock
You
it.
were not allowed, I don't, it's not by Robert's rules, but
Well,
they wouldn't
it's
allow
not
us
the
to
way-
make amendments.
Right, any rule, you can change any rule, you can suspend any rule. You can suspend it for a particular time, you can suspend it for that meeting, you can suspend it for the duration of that body. But once the new convention occurs, the rules get reverted back to what you had in paper.
Unless they were permanent,
Unless you-
but done at a convention.
Unless during a recall of the convention, you actually pass a new set of rules, those become permanent.
But this is why it's important to look, we could spend a whole 2 hours on each one of these 12 segments, each one of them. So, but that's why we want to at least show the big picture of it, and then maybe come back and talk about individual ones, or at least give people. And we did have a handout, so we've got some handouts that we'll post online or share, with the videos out there that are kind of cheat sheets and some things like that. I know Terry, one of the ones I looked on the cheat sheet was you can set in your meeting a time to adjourn. So when it turns 8:30,
We're done.
you're done no matter where you are on the
I love that.
agenda,
In the agenda,
which helps us when we're at a library because we got to be out.
8:15.
And that's what they did to us. The minority did to us last meeting is they just kept trying to drag the meeting. So we were going to get, in trouble with the library. So we couldn't get the library again. Terry was frustrated because if we went over, past 8:30 or past 9 o'clock, they would kick us out and we would never be able to use the library again.
I would lose my privileges, not
Yes.
the party. I
So-
would.
So
I do have one question.
Yep.
For the call, for the order of the day, because we sometimes do get messed up with the agenda.
we do.
Well, we try to stay on time, but sometimes the trouble.
Oh, time, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it have to be an EC, or like, could I call it? Or do I just stand up and call it, or do I have to go to the microphone?
Mr. Rules, they said they're trying to fix that.
No,
Well, technically, it's supposed to be an EC.
An EC.
An EC. Yeah.
So that, we need to
To
have.
verify or clarify.
Or nobody.
But we can add in this, if we're at a library, we can add in, somebody can make a motion to end the meeting at a particular time when we have to be out of there. Okay, let's go to motions and debate, number 7.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Club. To assist our members, we prepared a set of videos that explain Robert's Rules of Order and how they apply to our organization. In this video, I'll be talking about how to make motions and engage in debate. A motion is a way business is brought before the members of the assembly. It's a formal proposal by a member. If approved, the proposal results in the assembly, its committees or officers taking some action. Robert's Rules Section 4 and 5 describe the main motion and how they are handled. There are 4 steps involved when making a motion. First, the member of the assembly must obtain the floor. This could be by raising their hand or coming up to the microphone. The member indicates to the chair that they wish to speak, but they must wait for the chair to recognize them and grant them the opportunity to address the assembly. Once the member is granted the floor, the member states their motion clearly. Usually they start with the phrase, "I move that." The member should just state the motion, not provide all the background and rationale. That will come during the debate phase. At this point, brevity is a virtue. Make the motion clear, make sure everyone understands it. The third step is for another member of the assembly to second the motion. This is done by the other member stating, "I second the motion," or "second." A second indicates that at least one other person wants to consider the business described in the motion. Requiring a second is one of the ways that the assembly is protected from a cranky individual who is just trying to stir up trouble. If no one else cares enough to second the motion, the assembly does not need to spend time on it. Some motions do not require a second. For instance, if a committee, as a result of their committee work, brings a motion to the assembly, no second is required. That's because the motion could not have made it out of committee without multiple committee members already agreeing on it. So it already has multiple members supporting it. The final step to making the motion is for the chairman to then repeat the motion to the assembly. This officially puts it before the assembly for discussion, debate, and ultimately a vote. Let me give you an example of a well-crafted motion and some things to avoid. First, a well-crafted motion. Mr. Chairman, I'm Ray Sheen from Clear Creek Precinct. I move that we make a modification to the bylaws by changing paragraph 1.2 to read blah, 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 blah. Notice that I address the chairman. I state who I am and the precinct I'm from. I state the specific action that I'm requesting. Some common mistakes are not to introduce yourself or your credentials, to state only facts but not a specific action that you want taken, to state a generic or general action that is so vague that something must be done but no one knows exactly what it is you're requesting, or providing a long-winded explanation with all the background and rationale before you actually get around to stating the motion. Now let's go over how the debate for a motion should occur. Once the chairman restates the motion to the assembly, the debate can start. The assembly may have standing rules for the debate. If so, follow them. Usually the person who brought the motion is entitled to speak first, and that is the time where they provide the background and rationale for the motion. Others can comment on the motion after they have been recognized by the chair and given the floor to speak. Normally, the debate continues for the allotted time or until everyone who wishes to speak on the issue has had a chance to speak. However, the chair or the assembly can restrict the number of speakers for and against a motion, and they can restrict the amount of time allotted to the speakers. So keep your comments focused and on point. There are several rules of decorum when speaking on a motion. First, there are no personal attacks. Next, all comments are directed to the chair, not to other members of the assembly. Also, the comments need to be related to the motion being debated. Don't bring up a new issue. Raise that issue at the appropriate time in the agenda. If a time limit has been set, respect it. Stay within your time. Don't interrupt others while they are speaking. If you want to correct something, or if you disagree with something that was said, seek to be recognized by the chair to make your comments. These are the common rules for debate. There are ways to modify that motion, amending it and tabling it. There's also special motions like privilege motions. We'll discuss all of those in other videos.
Okay. That was motions and debates. Any questions? Any thoughts? There's a lot in there, a lot to do, but realize, and you kind of heard, think about if you want to make a motion, in our case here in Greenville, submit it to us beforehand so we can consider it, so we can add it to the agenda. So people, we can put it under new business and add it to the agenda. Maybe we can help hone it down to what you're trying to communicate, because some people need some help communicating the motion and stuff like that. But if it's something that it better the body, we're happy to hear it. Now, if you just pop up at a meeting and you've got some long motion you want to make and nobody knows it, and you didn't bring handouts to share with everybody, and you got to stand up there and read a full page, 5 minutes, you're not going to get your motion through because nobody's going to know what it means. Now, I go through a policy where I tell people if somebody hasn't brought it to the body first and all those types of things and communicated it, given us an opportunity to talk to the executive committee members about it, Q&A, then you ought to just vote it down. If you not know what we're going into a meeting to discuss and talk about, because we do open forums and stuff before those formal business meetings, you ought to vote it down. There's rare exceptions if something comes up and the body or the executive committee says, hey, we forgot to bring this up, this is kind of last minute but it's non-controversial, then something could be there, just a technical issue. But don't let people try to manipulate the meetings and control the meetings by bringing up crazy stuff. I think there was one guy, a Jonathan Bright guy, tried to do something to prevent me from, or to maybe even kick me out of my position as state EC last term. I'm like, it just made no sense. And everybody was like, this is just another total waste of time. But you can have a board member that's causing problems.
Yeah, here's something that I noticed in the last couple of meetings, that when we're in debate and you put a time limit on somebody to speak, we need to have some visual cue as to what their time limit is.
Yeah,
because the last time I'm sitting there timing these people and they got 3 minutes and they're sitting there when you tell them and they're 5 minutes in and you're telling them they're 3 minutes up. No, I still got 2 more minutes. Yeah. And I want to know what damn kind of clock they're using. I want one of those that makes the day long.
Or it's going
And
don't argue with them about that, because
I know, the point is, though, is we need to
They need
have
to be
a
able to cut their
visual
mind.
cue,
Yeah.
some kind of visual cue that says.
And we can work on that, and at least we're setting a 3-4, 3 against, and
Yeah.
2-minute time limit, or 3-minute, whatever the time limit is. At least we're setting that, which we haven't had in the past. So, but realize, we have that in our meetings. We saw it in the congressional testimony this week.
Yeah.
All kinds of crazy, anger and non-decorum stuff. Yes, sir.
A lot of times our chairman doesn't do the timing, it's the secretary of the parliamentarian.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they'll stop them. They'll just say, time's up.
Yeah. And I think you were maintaining time, Scott.
Establish a
Somebody
timekeeper
was. Yeah.
And let them do that.
Yes, sir.
But
If somebody is getting off point during the debate, is it only the chairman that can step in to stop them?
Technically, yes. Somebody may need to remind me, and that's where call to order of the day type. If we're in a different topic, we're normally not off topic, I don't think. But if you're a member of the body and we're going off on some separate tangent, and we've already approved the budget. we've already approved the agenda, which we approved at the beginning of the meeting. Then you can call attention, order of the day or whatnot, that we're off agenda.
How many people in here are ECs? All right, so here's an example where I have to do it, but Valerie McCarthy is our county EC, but she's the vice president for my precinct, for one of my 2 vice presidents. She was the one that wrote the 3 election integrity bills that came out of Oconee County and went to Columbia. When I presented one of them, she had a much better understanding of that resolution than I did. So after calling for the resolution to be considered, I then deferred to her
As an expert.
that resolution, because don't assume that you have to defend a resolution as an EC. You can use the subject matter expert, bring somebody with you if you feel that you can't adequately defend it, or you're not, knowledgeable enough to properly defend it.
Anything else?
Just one thing. So let's say someone does bring a motion that they haven't discussed it and they tried to do that. I know we're supposed to discuss that motion before another motion can make, or can someone make a motion to table that motion?
Oh, yes.
At any
And
point
I
in time,
think
like, we're on that time.
and when we get to the main motion and bringing back, 9 and 10, he talks about that type of stuff. So
Okay.
there's a lot of things you can do. If somebody
You can
puts
do to
something, you
shut
can
it down.
table it
Table it.
permanently, temporarily, all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot more.
Yeah.
Next up.
We
Yes.
have a discussion sometime on how to, debate or give, when you speak at, at the, town council or county meetings, they give you your 3 minutes, but you don't really have to be heard. And, and so how do we, hold them accountable if we're, questioning their decision on who they're hiring to build that building, or,
But think about this: your elected officials are a member of the body. You're not. You're just the public. They let you come speak up front. Yeah.
So, it's part of our rules, ways to, I guess since I'm not a member, there's nothing I can do about it.
Not much. Not much.
It just-
Elect a new person. That's but you can talk to them beforehand.
Yeah.
Your county party, your club should censure you.
Yeah, we could do that. Those types of things. But remember, you're just not part of that body.
Okay.
Unless you're the elected officials. Okay, let's go to number 8, voting.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. To assist our members, we've developed this set of videos on Robert's Rules of Order and how to apply them in our meetings. In this video, I will discuss voting. Voting is the method by which the Assembly determines what actions are to be taken by the Assembly. Robert's Rule 45 describes the various types of voting and the issues that can arise when the Assembly is taking a vote. The most common type of voting is the voice vote. This is usually for simple or straightforward motions, such as approving the minutes from the previous meeting. In this case, the chairman asks, "All in favor say aye." Then the chairperson states, "All opposed say nay." The chairperson then states which side won, based upon the volume of the vote. However, several people who are very loud or soft-spoken can impact the impression of which side won. So, if it is at all close, a different method should be used. Also, if the vote requires a supermajority, voice vote cannot be used. A different voting method must be used so that we have a precise count showing that the supermajority was met. Most of the other voting methods consist of some type of a physical vote. One of these is a show of hands. This is typically done with small groups. The chairperson calls for a show of hands of those who support the motion and those who are against the motion. The chairman counts each group and then declares the winner. Another physical method is a rising vote. In this case, the chairperson calls the voting members to stand to support the motion and then stand if opposed. The number standing in each case is normally counted by a teller committee. More about them in a minute. However, the chair can ask that those standing count off, and as soon as they state their number, they sit down. One other way for a physical vote is to use a voting card. In this case, the members of the assembly have brightly colored cards. The chairperson asks those in favor to raise their cards, and the tellers count them. Then those opposed raise their cards, and the tellers count those. There are two other types of voting methods. One is the roll call. In this case, a motion is required to be conducted with a roll call vote. If the Assembly's bylaws permit, a smaller number than the majority can be sufficient to require a roll call vote. For instance, the bylaws may state that 20% of those present are sufficient to call for a roll call vote. When a roll call is conducted, the secretary of the organization is to call out each member's or delegate's name and record the answer of yes, no, absent, present, or abstain. A person can vote pass when their name is called, but in that case, the secretary will call them out again after the original votes have been taken, and at that point, they must give some type of response. The results of how each person voted is then recorded in the minutes of the meeting. The other method of voting is called a secret ballot. This is the method commonly used when voting for officers. In this case, each voting member indicates their choice on a slip of paper that is folded so that others cannot see how they have voted. One of the goals with secret ballots is to be sure that voters do not feel peer pressure or intimidation to vote the right way. It is believed with this method, members are more likely to vote their true conscience. Robert's Rule 45-23 states that the secret ballot must be on paper, not using an electronic voting method, unless there is a rule in the bylaws that specifically allows that. Now let's look at several other aspects associated with voting. The first one involves counting. The chairperson is responsible for the count, but they often have a teller or teller committee that assists them. Robert's Rule 45-26 describes the requirements for someone to be a teller. Normally, tellers are appointed by the chairperson unless the organization has a standing teller committee. In small assemblies, such as a committee meeting, the chairperson is the teller. When additional tellers are needed, the teller committee is appointed by the chairperson or elected by the bylaws of the organization. Tellers should be chosen based on their accuracy, dependability, and they should have the confidence of the assembly. Tellers should not have a direct personal involvement in the issue which is being voted. If they are a member of the assembly, they have a right to vote also. The number of tellers is a judgment call made by the chairperson or assembly. When tellers do the counting, they provide the result of their count to the chairperson, who then announces the results to the assembly. Unless there has been a limit set on the debate, such as 5 people on each side who can speak on a topic, the timing for when to close the debate and conduct a vote is found in Robert's Rule 16. This is referred to as calling the previous question or calling the question. There are some special rules about this motion. It must be seconded, and it is not debatable. If it passes, then the motion that was being debated must immediately be voted on without further discussion. However, in order to pass, it requires a 2/3 majority, not just a simple majority. One other rule to make is that rules of decorum still apply, so someone must first be recognized by the chair in order to make that motion. They cannot just shout out from the assembly, "Call the question!" Another rule concerning voting is when a voice vote is inconclusive or a member feels that the chairman's interpretation is incorrect. That member can call for a division. That does not require a second. When that motion is made, a revote occurs immediately using a physical rising method, not a voice vote or show of hands. However, the motion must be made immediately after the results of the votes are announced. Once the next order of business is started, this motion will not be allowed. As you can see, voting is critical, and there are a number of rules associated with it. But voting is not the only thing that can be done with a motion. In other videos, we'll talk about other actions that can be taken on a motion.
There's a lot to voting. I mean, I was not even aware that a call to question had to have 2/3. Now you look, you said, if you have to have a supermajority, it can't just be a voice vote. I mean, do we have to have a ballot or whatnot for that? So, I mean, there's some things we can talk about in that regards. Could be standing or something like that. But yes, but if you look at all the different types of voting methods, voice vote, show of hands, rising, we actually, in our credentialing stuff for each committee, we have a red and a blue card in there that they can pull out and show that. Roll call vote, secret ballot. Think about, and he talked about it with electing officers. Well, I actually, you're representing your precinct. It's one thing if you're voting in your precinct for who's going to represent you. That should be a secret ballot because you're voting for yourself. But if I'm an EC of my precinct and then the ECs are voting for, as we'll do at the special meeting on the 23rd, we're voting for a new first vice chair. You're representing your precinct. This isn't your personal vote. This is your vote for your precinct. I think it should be public. So, where do those things fit in all there? And that's why we're even going through this exercise for ourselves, so we can figure out a better way to do it as well, because we don't want to force it down people's throat. We elected at our Greenville convention, we elect the chair, the state EC, and the first vice chair, but all the other elected people come at the first meeting. So you're elected by the EC body. Should that be secret ballot or should it be, you're representing yourself? I don't think, William Timmons or Lindsey Graham or Tim Scott, my representatives in Congress, should be voting secret ballot. They shouldn't. I want to know how they're voting, because they represent me. So that's the way I kind of try to equate it. But there's a lot there. We got 4 more videos. We may go a few minutes past one, but I'm going to keep it quick. So let's go to number 9, the main motion.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. We prepared a set of videos to assist our members in understanding how to apply Robert's Rules of Order to our meetings and events. In this video, I'll be discussing the main motion and how we can dispose of it. As I discuss each type of motion, I'll also explain Robert's rule that defines that. Rule 10 is the set of rules that apply to a main motion. A main motion introduces a substantive question or issue before the assembly for discussion. A main motion will have the following characteristics. It requires a second from another member of the assembly. This type of motion is debatable, so it will often be necessary that we'll have people speaking for both for and against the motion. The motion can be amended, and I'll talk about how to do that in a minute. It requires a majority vote of the members present in order to pass. An example of a main motion is, I move that we purchase a new printer for the office, or I move that the committee report be accepted. Finally, this motion does not take precedence over any other motions. It must yield to all subsidiary, incidental, and privileged motions. That means that those motions can interrupt the discussion on a main motion, and they must be dealt with before returning back to the main motion. I'll explain subsidiary motions later in this video and discuss the incidental and privileged motions in other videos. I said that the main motion yields to a subsidiary motion. Subsidiary motions assist the assembly in treating or disposing of a main motion. They are applied to a main motion and sometimes other subsidiary motions, and they must be decided before returning to the topic of the main motion. The first subsidiary motion to discuss is a motion to amend. It's a common subsidiary motion. This is a motion that modifies the wording of a main motion that is currently being debated. Robert's Rule 12 explains the different aspects of motions to amend. This motion changes the wording in the main motion, and like it, this motion must be seconded, it can be debated, and it requires a majority to pass. It can also be amended by a second motion to amend. It takes precedence over a subsidiary motion to postpone indefinitely, but it does not take precedence over any of the other subsidiary motions. Since I just mentioned the motion to postpone indefinitely, let's talk about that next. Robert's Rule 11 deals with that type of subsidiary motion. This is a motion to essentially kill a main motion without actually taking a vote to approve it or reject it. There is no direct vote on the merits of the main motion, so the Assembly does not take a position on that issue at this time. This motion must be seconded, it is debatable, however it cannot be amended, and it requires a majority vote to pass. If it passes, the matter introduced in the main motion is dropped for the rest of this meeting and cannot be raised again until the Assembly has a new meeting. Another subsidiary motion that is related to the previous one is the motion to postpone for a definite period. This is explained in Robert's Rule 14. This motion doesn't kill the main motion, but it stops debate and a vote on the main motion for a time. Instead, it requires the main motion to be reopened at some later time within this meeting or convention. And usually, the motion will specify the time or point in the agenda when this motion is again debated. The motion requires a second, it is debatable, it cannot be amended, and requires a majority vote to pass. A variation of the motion to postpone for a definite period is a motion to lay the issue on the table, sometimes called tabling it. Robert's Rule 17 discusses this subsidiary motion. This is a tricky motion, and the chairperson needs to make sure it's not abused. The purpose is to temporarily stop debate so that another more important or time-sensitive action can be completed. The debate should be resumed as soon as the other action is complete. This motion requires a second, but it's not debatable and cannot be amended. The chairperson can ask the person making the motion to provide the reason, but debate is not allowed. The motion requires a majority to pass. Once the other urgent business is finished, a motion can be made to take the main motion from the table and debate can then be resumed. Like the motion placing it on the table, this motion requires a second, it cannot be debated, and it cannot be amended, and it requires a majority to pass. Now let's discuss the motion to limit the extent of the debate on the main motion. This motion is discussed in Robert's Rule 15. I've mentioned that the chairperson can set limits on the debate of a motion, and with this motion, the Assembly can set limits which would override the chairperson's limits. This motion can require the debate to stop at a certain time. The rules for this motion are slightly different than some of the other motions. It requires a second, it's not debatable, it cannot be amended, but it does require a 2/3 majority to pass. Another method for disposing of a main motion without the Assembly taking action on it is a motion to refer the main motion to a committee for further study. Robert's Rule 13 explains how this motion works. If the motion is to refer this to a standing committee, then the motion states which standing committee it is to go to. If the motion is to refer this issue to an ad hoc or a special committee, the motion must state who should be on that committee. This motion requires a second. It is debatable, it can be amended, and it requires a majority vote to pass. When it passes, the main motion is no longer debatable or discussed by the Assembly. The committee takes up the motion and must provide their findings and conclusions in a committee report back to the main Assembly. The final subsidiary motion is one that we've actually already discussed. It's a motion to call the previous question, or, as it's commonly phrased, to call the question. Robert's Rule 16 addresses this motion. The motion stops debate and forces a vote on the main motion. However, first the body must vote on the motion to call the question. This motion must be seconded, it cannot be debated or amended, and it requires a 2/3 vote. If it passes, the body then votes on the main motion. So we've talked about main motions and how to dispose of them with subsidiary motions. There's still other motions that we need to discuss on other videos.
So think about that when and Terry was kind of bringing it up. If somebody brings up something that really hasn't been discussed, we haven't been able to share, it's a brand new thing, you can table it. You can call the question and just vote against it. You can refer it to a committee indefinitely. All those types. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. Yes, sir. And we'll get to the next.
That if you call the question, it requires a 2/3 vote. That can be quite extensive and time consuming.
It could be, and that's what we will figure out. How do we do those? I mean, we've called the question before, and then just a voice vote, and you could hear the majority. We'll have to figure out exactly, how the call to question works, because it is a good, to move business along. It's a good tactic.
Robert's rules comes into play if the bylaws or rules of the county don't address that issue. So if the rules of the GCRP says a simple majority for calling the question is acceptable, that's what.
Yeah, but it has to be in the rules, and if it's not in the rules, but we can adopt rules, and that's why I want us to adopt a few rules to kind of get through the process of learning this and cleaning up our Greenville GOP rules. So when we will do it for a temporary for the rest of this 2-year term, but then at the next convention we'll make it permanent going forward.
That's why this class is important.
Yes, it is. And I'm telling you, we could spend a full day on each one of these things. So maybe even with the coffee and politics, we'll do one, and talk about it for 30 minutes and defer to the next meeting. So let's go to number 10, bringing back and privileged motions.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. We've prepared a set of videos to assist our members in understanding how to apply Robert's Rules of Order to our meetings and events. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to bring motions back to the Assembly for debate and discussion, and also privileged motions. First, let's talk about how to bring motions back to the Assembly. These motions allow the Assembly to reconsider or review a question or motion that has already been decided. The most common of these is a motion to reconsider. This motion is dealt with in Robert's Rule 37. Its effect is to bring a motion that has been disposed of back for further debate, further discussion, and vote. There are some special rules for this motion. First, it must be made by a member who voted on the winning side of the original motion, indicating a potential change of heart. It must be made during the meeting in which it was approved and before the specific action directed by the motion has actually taken effect. If approved, it comes back with the same wording and same level that existed when it was approved. The motion to reconsider must be seconded, but the second can be by any member of the body, not just someone who had voted on the winning side. The motion to reconsider is debatable if the original motion was debatable, but it's not amendable. We can't make amendments to it. It requires a majority to pass, but a special note, the motion to reconsider cannot be reconsidered. So if the motion was made and fails, it cannot be brought up again in that meeting. Another motion is the motion to rescind or repeal and amend a motion that previously passed. This is used to undo a previously approved motion. This is discussed in Robert's Rule 35. This is a motion to undo or replace a motion that passed at a previous meeting. The motion requires a second. It is both debatable and can be amended. This motion typically, though, requires a 2/3 majority to pass. Another motion that can be used to resume debate is a motion to take from the table. This is discussed in Robert's Rule 34. If a motion was disposed of at the time of its original debate by tabling it, this motion removes it from the table and brings it back to continue the debate. It requires a second. It's not debatable. It cannot be amended, and it requires a majority vote to resume the debate of the main motion. Another way to bring a motion back to the full assembly is a motion to discharge from a committee. This is addressed in Robert's Rule 36. It should be obvious that this applies when a motion was disposed of by referring it to a committee. This might be used if the Assembly believes a committee is trying to bury the issue. This motion requires a second. It can be debated and amended. It requires a 2/3 vote since it's reversing a decision previously made by the Assembly. Let's shift the gears now and we'll consider our next category of motions. That category are privileged motions. These motions are concerned with the rights and needs of the Assembly or its members. They are not related to the business that's being discussed, but instead relate to some special matter that requires immediate attention. The first one is a motion that calls for the order of the day. This is addressed in Robert's Rule 18. This is a motion to require the Assembly to follow the agenda that was previously approved. The motion does not require a second. It's not debatable. It can't be amended. When the motion is made, the chairman should immediately go to the correct business on the agenda and pick it up at that point. However, if the body wants to continue the debate or deviate, then someone can make a motion to suspend the rules, which requires a 2/3 majority vote to approve. Another privileged motion is the motion to recess. Robert's Rule 20 explains this motion. This is a motion to take a short break. As soon as the recess is over, the meeting continues right where it left off. This motion requires a second. It's not debatable, it can't be amended, and it passes with the majority vote. The motion should include the amount of time for the recess. Now, if a recess was already listed in the agenda, no motion is required. The chair just announces that we're at that point in the agenda. Next is the motion to adjourn. Robert's Rule 21 addresses this topic. This is a motion to immediately stop and disband the meeting. If approved, the meeting ends and no business can be conducted until the next time the Assembly meets. Like most other privileged motions, it requires a second, it cannot be debated, it cannot be amended, and it requires a majority to pass. One point to note, if instead of immediately adjourning, the motion is to adjourn at a specific time or after a specific topic on the agenda, it's not considered a privileged motion at that point. It's a main motion and can be debated and amended. The final motion of privilege that I want to discuss is one known as raising a question of privilege. This is discussed in Robert's Rule 19. This is a motion that a member raises and is normally related to the comfort, safety, or some other aspect of the rights of the Assembly. A common example could be someone raising a question of privilege when they ask that all people speak into the microphone so that those sitting in the back of the room can hear what's being said. The individual making the motion can interrupt someone on the floor, but only if what the motion they're making is an urgent one. Now, this motion does not require a second. It's not debatable. It can't be amended. And the chairman makes the ruling. It's not even voted on. Well, these set of motions are ways to keep the meeting moving efficiently and effectively. We still have other motions that we need to discuss.
Okay, the sonomy, yeah, all that kind of stuff. Rule 19 sounds great to me. But there's a lot of these motions. I hope the cheat sheets that we gave folks will help a little bit. But as I said, you could spend a whole day on these types of things. Stop the meeting.
Yeah.
Terry wants that. We'll have to add that as a regular agenda item on there in the meeting at a particular time. If we're at the library, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It really makes a lot of sense. So let's go to the next one because I know people want to eat. It'll be incidental motions number 11.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. We've prepared a set of videos to assist our members in applying Robert's Rules of Order to our meetings and events. In this video, I'll be discussing incidental motions and when and how to use them. So the first question is, what's an incidental motion? Incidental motions deal with procedural issues, not the subject of debate. However, they arise out of a pending motion or debate and must be decided before the question on which they arise. Some of them even allow a person to violate one of our principles of debate, and they can interrupt the proceedings. The most common of these incidental motions is the point of order. The purpose of this motion is to call attention to a breaking of a parliamentary procedure. This motion is discussed in Robert's Rule 23. The person making the point of order needs to make it as soon as the breach occurs. In fact, this motion is in order even if another person has the floor. So the person making this motion can interrupt whoever has the floor. This motion does not require a second. It can't be debated, and it can't be amended. However, the chair can ask the person who made the motion to explain why they think the rules have been violated. This rule is not subject to a vote by the assembly. Rather, the chair makes a ruling. In this case, we'll sometimes have a subsidiary motion to place a main motion on the table, and that allows the chairman or parliamentarian to research the point of order while other business is conducted. If the chair rules in favor of the motion, the error in parliamentary procedures is corrected and the meeting continues. If the chair rules against it, the meeting just continues as it was going. Next, I want to discuss two very similar motions, a request for parliamentary inquiry and a request for information. They're discussed in Robert's Rule 33. These are motions that can interrupt someone who has the floor. They do not require a second. They cannot be debated or amended. They do not require a vote from the main body. Instead, the chairman or someone that they designate provides the information that's being requested. The next incidental motion is no surprise, given that in some cases the rulings here have been done by the chair. This is a motion to appeal the decision of the chair and is discussed in Robert's Rule 24. This motion challenges the ruling made by the chair. Like the point of order, the person making this motion can interrupt the person who has the floor. However, in this case, this motion does require a second. The motion is debatable, but it cannot be amended. A majority or a tie sustains the ruling of the chair. Another incidental motion is to move that the rules be temporarily set aside. This is known as moving to suspend the rules and is described in Robert's Rule 25. When making this motion, the person must state the purpose for which it is to be adopted, and the suspension will only apply as it pertains to that issue. The organization's bylaws cannot be suspended, nor can there be any suspension of legal statutes, federal, state, or local laws. The motion requires a second. It is not debatable, nor can it be amended. This motion requires a 2/3 majority to pass. Let's now look at incidental motions that affect how a main motion is handled. First is the objection to the consideration of a question. Robert's Rule 26 explains this type of motion. This is a motion that would prohibit the debate or consideration of the main motion. This motion must be made at the start of debate on the motion. The person making it can interrupt whoever has the floor. It does not require a second. It cannot be debated. It cannot be amended. However, it requires a 2/3 majority to pass, and if it does, it has the effect of squashing the motion. The next motion is a motion for the division of a question. This is addressed in Robert's Rule 27. When the main motion is a multi-part motion, a member can move that it be divided into separate parts and each part be debated and voted on individually. When making this motion, the person must make it clear what the division is between the different parts of the main motion. This motion must be seconded. It can be amended, but it's not debatable. It will pass with a majority vote. A related motion that operates in the same manner is a motion that requests consideration by paragraph. This is explained in Robert's Rule 28. This motion would be appropriate for a long resolution. If it passes, each paragraph in the resolution is considered separately and voted on separately. There is one type of incidental motion that deals with making a motion. That is a motion to withdraw or modify a motion. This motion is discussed in Robert's Rule 33. This motion is dealt with in two ways depending upon when it occurs. If the individual who made the motion decides to withdraw it or modify it before the chairperson states the motion and opens the debate, then they can just do that. However, if this motion is made after the debate has already started, The motion can still be made, but now it needs to be approved by the assembly. It cannot be debated or amended. A majority vote is needed, and most of the time, these are approved by just a unanimous consent. There are a number of other incidental motions that deal with voting and nominations. For instance, the motion for division of the assembly when voting. Robert's Rule 29, which is to do a physical count instead of a voice count when voting, and motions calling for a roll call vote or a secret ballot. That would be in Robert's Rule 30. And there are motions that are used for nominating people for office and closing the nominations. These are discussed in Robert's Rule 31. All of these must be seconded. They're not debatable, but they can be amended, except the division of the assembly. Incidental motions are used to keep the parliamentary process going and make the meeting run smoothly and correctly. They don't address the pros and cons of a debate, but they are very helpful for a smooth and orderly meeting.
Okay, there's a lot of stuff there. I mean, that is a thick one. Again, I hope the cheat sheets and all that kind of stuff. I mean, but we could spend an hour on each one of those rules. So let's go to the last one, and we'll hopefully get best practice.
Hi, I'm Ray Sheen. I'm the parliamentarian for the Greenville County Republican Party Club. We prepared a set of videos that discuss Robert's Rules of Order and how they apply to our meetings and events. In this video, I'll be looking at best practices for conducting a meeting with a special emphasis on virtual meetings. In our current society, virtual meetings have become a commonplace event. Robert's Rules has some comments in this topic, although this is still evolving, and these rules may change as the format becomes more prevalent. Robert's Rule refers to virtual meetings as electronic meetings. Generally, Robert's Rule says that a meeting is at a fixed physical location. However, it acknowledges that electronic meetings now exist with people in multiple locations. However, Rule 8-2 notes that the organizational bylaws should clearly state that virtual or electronic meetings can occur. That point is reiterated in Rule 9-30. According to Rule 9-31 and 33, the bylaws should identify that members can participate by telephone, internet, or in person. In fact, one meeting can include members using all three methods. Further, the bylaws should allow electronic aids to be used when conducting the meeting. This could include software apps that allow for collaboration. Robert's Rule 9-34 notes that it's essential that whatever technology is used, the meeting can be conducted in a deliberative assembly. Everyone in attendance must be able to communicate and participate in the debate. Robert's Rule 9-36 instructs that the meeting organizers must ensure that all members have the connection information for the electronic meeting. In addition, if special technology is needed, the organization should provide that special technology or instructions of how to get it easily. The meeting still requires credentialing of members and the determination of a quorum in order to conduct the meeting. Also, the attendance must be monitored to ensure a quorum is maintained. There must be a method by which members in attendance can seek recognition and how they can gain the opportunity to speak to the assembly, to be given the floor. The strongly preferred method is actually speaking rather than placing comments in a chat box or emailing. There must also be a method for electronic voting. Robert's Rules 45-18 and 45-42 note that a virtual meeting of a large body, voting is done by ballot. In a small meeting of just a few people, such as a committee meeting, the voting could be done by a voice vote or show of hands. Either a standing rule or a mention in the bylaws should identify when and if electronic voting systems can be used or if the ballots must be counted by hand. Let's wrap up this section with some common sense ground rules for conducting a meeting. These apply to both virtual and face-to-face meetings. First, there's preparation. The chair should be familiar with the agenda and the potential motions. If possible, the meeting agenda should be distributed ahead of time so that members can be reviewing materials beforehand. Another best practice is clear communication. This one applies to everyone who speaks at the meeting. Speak clearly, concisely, and directly to the chair. In large organizations where everybody does not know each other, start your communication by identifying yourself. Keep in mind that you're not playing 20 questions. People should not have to guess what you're talking about. Get directly to the point. Another principle is respectful debate. We want healthy discussion while maintaining civility. People can and should ask questions and provide relevant information for the assembly. But it's not an argument. It is a debate. Provide your perspective and respect the fact that others may have a different point of view. That does not make them the enemy. Finally, understand the rules and types of motions. Know when to use each of the different motion types. The motions help us to keep debate orderly and focused. Using the right motion helps the meeting flow and be more efficient. In this series of videos, I've only discussed the main elements of Robert's Rules. There are many, many other nuances and special cases that we did not address. But what we've talked about will cover 99% of the situations that we see in our meetings and events. I hope you found this to be useful and helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting.
Olga didn't remind me of the point. One recommendation somebody put on the on one of the chats was, break this down and only discuss one at a time because it's a lot of information. Yeah. So really, this is kind of a highlight of it. As Dr. Sheen said, it covers about 99% of what we'll see at our meetings, but you could spend a full 2 hours on each and every one of these segments. So pick things that you're interested in, follow up. We'll put it all out there. We'll put the cheat sheets and all that stuff. Yes, sir.
Can we get access to this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes.
We'll put it online.
Yeah, we'll put it online, the individual videos. We'll probably put the full thing. Well, obviously we've got the full thing here, and then we can give. Yeah. I'm glad you guys came from
Did everyone
a long drive.
Get a cheat sheet? Yeah.
The other recommendation that I'll make myself, Chair, is to take out section 3 about the chairman stuff. So, and only talk about Rule 19.
I don't think she got it.
All good?
I gave mine away.
One question, yes, sir.
Yeah, I gave mine away.
Motion to adjourn. Is that debatable? Can we debate this adjourn? Do we need a second? All right, we're out. We're adjourned. We're going to have Mexican. So thank you for everybody that came and joined.
If anyone is interested in joining us, we're going down the street to the Corona.